of 2017, where the city started discussing initial labor proposals with those groups. At that time, that was around the same time that we had the fire annexation effort going on and whatnot. The discussions were intermittent in that time period with the union groups, and in in December of 2008, the city couldn't reach agreement with the labor unions and went to impasse. On July 22nd, 2019, for the first two groups, the Upland City Employees Association and the Mid-Management Association that had gone to impasse, the Upland Police Management Association was still bargaining with the city. There were public hearings that were held, and testimony was given both on the employee side by their representatives and on the city side by our attorney relating to the fact finders' conclusions for the city council's consideration. At that time, the agreements would have been basically a 3-year agreement, so council requested that I go back and work with the various labor groups to see if we could come up with a 5-year negotiated agreement rather than just an imposition of terms. I was able to work with these three bargaining units: the Upland City Employees Association, the Upland Mid-Management Association, and the Police Management Association, to come up with terms. And all of those contracts are 5-year terms expiring June 30th, 2022. The compensation includes a 1% lump sum payment for the first 2 years to compensate employees for the period of time when we didn't have a contract. A 4% COLA that would be effective August 11th, 2019, and then 2% COLA on June 28th, 2020, and a 2% COLA on June 27th, 2021. Those are across the board the same for all of the groups, including the executive management group. The executive management group doesn't have a time frame on their contract, but the provisions in there are to have those adjustments made just like every other these other 3 bargaining units. In addition, the Upland City Employees Association had an adjustment to their cafeteria plan, increasing it by $83 to $1,267 per month. They also have no cash in lieu associated with their cafeteria, so it's a lose it or use it.
Hey, Rosemary, can you please explain to the residents what cafeteria is? Cafeteria
is a health benefit allowance for the employee and their employee's spouse and employee's family if they have a family. So there's a flat rate of an allowance per month that they can use for those purposes. With regard to Upland Mid-Management Association, their cafeteria allowance went up $72 to $1,184 per month, and for mid-management it went up by $33 to $1,300 per month. The only difference being there's no cash in lieu unless you're an exempt employee, and an exempt employee is one that is salaried and gets no overtime associated with their service to the city. So in the event that they're an exempted employee and they have a cafeteria that they don't use for health, dental, or vision, they're allowed to put that excess cafeteria into a deferred compensation plan. All other employees would not have that opportunity, as they have an access to overtime, or they're provided with overtime. In addition, the Upland City Employees Association and the and the Police Management Association will receive $100 per month per employee for their deferred compensation. So that's an addition. And then the Upland City Employees Association and Police Management Association will get a $100. Well, the first group, the Upland City Employees Association, will get $100 a year towards preventative health. So they go out and they do something that keeps them healthy, which, typically they're, better employees when they have that kind of exercise regime. They get $100 per year, and the Police Management Association gets $180 per year. And they have to demonstrate that they're either joined a gym and have a receipt, or they bought some tennis shoes, or they've got something that is geared towards improving their health and well-being. And that's provided once a year. And then the Upland City Employees Association also, along with the Police Management Association, requested that they have the opportunity to buy back an additional 20 hours of vacation leave that they've accrued during the year, provided they've used vacation leave during the year. And all that does is it reduces our liability on the books. So it's just an opportunity for them to get that. The mid-management, the executive team, in that particular case, I am recommending that we allow the executive team to buy an additional 40 hours of leave back every year. They're here a lot. They don't use their leave that much, and it gets that liability off the books for them. So the executive team would have an opportunity to do that. And then with regard to the benefits that the city's receiving, again, that no cash in lieu for employees who are not an exempted employee. And on top of that, the two unions, the Upland City Employees Association, as well as the Mid-Management Association, as well as the executive team, so the non-safety represented groups, any employee that's a classic employee that's hired after January 1st, 2020 will contribute 1.4% of their salary towards the employer's cost for PERS. And so I think that's what that does is it's an equivalent to, moving away from it's going to vary a little bit over the years, but it's equivalent, at least at this point in time, to the difference between a 2.5 at 55 PERS retirement versus a 2% at 55. So it's having those employees contribute towards the employer's cost. So that's my summary of what's presented for you today. There are a couple changes that were put on the dais here related to the Police Management Association, which includes adding the captain into cleanup into the PERS retirement section, and also adding the captain to get meritorious pay equivalent to other people within that, or other positions within that bargaining unit. So there's some consistency language that's included in the document. And then again, there may be there's a few other things. There's cleanup language in the agreement, and then consistency language specifically in the Police Management Association agreement. I'd be happy to answer questions that you might have.
Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, Rosemary, can you provide an update as far as the bargaining status from the Uplands Police Associations?
Last Thursday, just prior to posting the agenda, I did get a reach out from the Police Officers Association, but we were so close to what they had presented to me was something that I didn't have authority to make any kind of or provide any kind of guidance to them. They were asking for what other employees receive plus some additional stuff. And so I said we can't, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to come to an understanding on that. So we did not include that in the packet. I'm hopeful that we'll continue to speak with the Police Officers Association, and maybe that's something that we might be able to bring back to the council for your consideration at the next meeting, but that'll be dependent upon, what our discussions are related to their position.
And you've pretty much been the primary negotiator, haven't you been, since you were appointed the interim city manager, or have we been using the Zappia law firm as the negotiator?
No, I've been working with all of the union groups, and they've been receptive to having that back and forth conversation.
I want to thank you very much for your very diligent efforts, for working with them, for getting us 5-year contracts. I don't think anybody is thrilled on their side and our side about this. We'd all like something different, but I think, like the forest attorneys will say, if nobody's happy, that means you've got a good deal. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Question, Mayor? Rosemary, could you share with the public what the financial impacts are?
Sure.
And where the funds are coming from to support this? Right.
The financial impacts for this arrangement for this year is roughly, it's a little under, it's about $884,000 net to the city for this year. We've looked at our books, and we actually had a set aside for these labor negotiations, but we've looked at our salary savings and from last fiscal year that closed. Based upon our accounting data, we should have sufficient funds to cover this. So we're asking, we think we can absorb this and look at it mid-year, but we think that the appropriation can come out of salary savings from last fiscal year.
And moving forward.
Yes, and moving forward, next year's budget, we'll go through the budget process, and as we do every year, we'll submit a balanced budget to the city for their consideration.
Rosemary, can you explain to the residents how we've become a training ground and how much we lose for every employee that we train, and then they move on to a higher paying city, which we still pay more when they leave because of the PERS? Right.
It's what I would say is in many of the departments, specifically our Public Works Utility Department, the police department, the police officers, we've had 100% turnover or very close to 100% turnover in staff. These are people that in the police department, they have to go through a training to get even placed in that position, or they're doing, either the city's doing it, or they might be getting somebody from another agency, but it's more than likely, the chief could probably attest to this, that we're bringing people in, we're taking them through the training protocols. It costs, quite a bit of money. I don't know what you would estimate for a police officer to get them to a position that, meets the requirements for a full officer. But then they turn around and they'll go to another agency, they'll transfer. So we're spending money training, and we're losing efficiencies by training new employees to understand in the water system, how our water system works, what our protocols are, getting them ready so they can even be on standby. We're a 24/7 operation, so we have to have people that are senior staff or have some longevity with the agency in order to give them that opportunity to work in the evening and respond to emergencies or customer complaints. You don't want somebody who doesn't understand how to operate the system or what to do. It's unfortunate that we've become this training facility. I mean, in our engineering group, we've lost basically all of our staff to other agencies. And now we're starting with new staff, training them, which is delaying projects getting out the door, and just because they're new to the city. What happens to us really is, the employees have their time and grade here at the city, so they have maybe the salary that they were making here, but the years of service goes into the formula. They can leave the city and go to another agency and make more money, and the city's still responsible for a retirement payment that's pegged to their higher salary, their salary that they're getting at another organization. So all we're doing is that churn of of getting employees ready to move on and be great employees somewhere else. I mean, I think we need to really pay attention to our employees and try and keep some of that institutional strength here in Upland rather than see it leave and go to another agency. But that's, we have, you could even look in the finance department and see the turnaround they have in finance, the turnaround we have up in public works operations. I mean, even all the maintenance workers, just they come in, we train them, they leave the city, they go somewhere else. It's happening throughout this organization, and it's hard to keep the level of service up when you can't fill vacancies. We have a pretty significant vacancy rate with about 20% of the employees that we're trying to fill all the time because people are leaving, and it takes a long time to fill a position, and then all the time and effort it takes to train that person to see them leave.
You really can't take into account then the stress that you put on the employees that are staying here that have to pick up the slack. And that's not a good thing, number one, in the police department and public safety, including public works, because then you're over-stressing the employees. And once you start over-stressing them, then all of a sudden there's health issues. They call in sick. It's just not a good type of working environment to ever have, and I appreciate that question, Councilman.
And it's not financially effective to keep training people and losing them, or even if someone's been here for a long 5+ years. Now we're paying a higher retirement to another city because they're making more somewhere else. So we're still paying more at the end. So why not keep them here and keep the good employees here and our city services up instead?
Any other questions? Rosemary, I have a couple for you. So this 874 for the UCEA, UMMA, UPMA, and the exec, that 400,000 of that we budgeted for, correct?
We had a set aside for it, yeah, about 450-ish, the set aside.
So the other 420, whatever it is, where's that money coming from?
So we did an accounting run today. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to double check this, and the salary savings from the vacancies that we've had in the organization last fiscal year amounts to $2.2 million. So we could absorb all of this expense within the salary savings that we had last year, just because we've had really high vacancy rates in, police department and public works.
Except that 874 is not everything. If we add the UPOA in there based on the figures you gave me, we're at 1.4 to 1.5 million.
Yeah, we haven't finished discussions with.
I know, but it's going to come sooner or later, right?
We actually have finished discussions with Police Officers Association. However, your direction to me was to go back and just see if there would be something that we could do with all of the bargaining units.
And I understand all of that, but it's still not in that dollar figure. That 874 does not include the UPOA. So now that's going to take us up to the higher scale of the 1.2 or 1.4 to 1.5 million by the time we add that group in.
I didn't come prepared for that discussion, but it certainly, if we went back to POA, I mean, I have the numbers. I could run them for you right now, but
no. But all I'm just saying is that 874 is not a true number. That's not everything all in.
It's it's all of the employees groups, with the exception of the Police Officers Association,
which is the biggest.
They do have a number of people.
Right.
Let me see. Police Officers Association. Well, it's 59 officers.
Right.
So.
Right.
I
based it on 60, so even still, it's your largest group. And we've discussed over different times the source of funds. I mean, you say it's surplus, but is it really surplus, or is it the one-time money we got from the fire department Is it,
Well, this is
because you're only talking about 1 year.
Yeah, this is salary savings from not filling employees for last year. So
Right, which
that's
is
the
one-time
2.2.
savings on
Well,
money.
Well, that's reoccurring revenue because it's not one-time money. Well, I guess it's not completely reoccurring revenue, but because this year we tightened the budgeting up a little bit, I don't think we'll have that much in salary savings at the end of this fiscal year. But next year, our charge, just like in every year, is to go out to the departments and prepare a budget. Go through that budget. It always takes massaging. Usually comes in the budget expenditures exceed the revenue associated with or that the city receives, and then we have to go back to those departments and we have to make adjustments in their budgets. That's a very typical process that we do every year, and then we bring a balanced budget to you. So next year we'll have to consider these adjustments that have been approved by council in our budget process.
All right, so we keep talking about this year. What about the year after and the year after? We're hitting a slower economy. Yeah. And what's your plan on how to fix this? Are we going layoffs? Are we going, when we can't make the budget?
We will monitor. So we come back to the city council at mid-year and we report, where are we with mid-year revenues to expenditures. And if we have to course correct, I'll ask Londa, if we have to course correct at that time, we'll be coming back and making recommendations to council.
Such as? For
any kind of proposed reductions to budgeted items if, in fact, we're not experiencing the revenue that we expect.
So does that mean that comes away from our residents? Are we going to cut services? Are we going to have to?
We are cutting services in a way because the city doesn't create a product, outside of the enterprises.
Right.
We're a service-driven organization, so the people that work in this organization are what's providing services to the customers.
Right. But if we have to lay off or whatever else you have in mind, can't do furloughs.
Yeah.
Furloughs have to be negotiated. So you can't.
I don't know about that.
I can tell you can't because I checked into
in another city, and we agreed that in lieu of doing, layoffs, we would implement a furlough plan.
Well, you need to double check because I'm pretty sure they have to be negotiated with our MOUs that are out there.
Quick question: how much money have we spent on the Zappia law firm for this negotiation period?
Well, as I recall, that was, 360 maybe?
Okay, because the reason I ask is I just spoke with a council member in Rancho, and they just got done with their negotiations, and I asked him, okay, who did you hire for this? And he said, we just had the city manager and our HR do it. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, then that means the way I look at it, we just wasted $360,000 on somebody we didn't need.
Councilman Phil, I think it's a little unfair to throw that at Rosemary.
No, I'm not throwing it at her. I'm just letting people know
how
that.
much did she spend? She didn't spend it. When she became the
I said, actually,
city
how much
manager,
did we spend?
We at that point requested that she take that action. So this council, in fact, was the ones that gave Rosemary that direction.
Well, that's why I said, how much did we spend? I didn't say how much did you spend. I said, how much did we spend?
Excuse me, Lois, please.
So the thing is that the city of Upland was able to spend $360,000 for a law firm to fail, because obviously you stepped in and you took care of business. Obviously, if we have almost $400,000 to throw away at a law firm, that's kind of a slap in the face to our PD, our the POA, the PMA, all these employees, staff. So the thing is that I feel it's a big disrespect to our employees by spending $400,000 on an attorney that fails and not give them that money. So if we have money to do that, we should be able to have money to pay our staff.
I think that what has been presented to you is some modest cost of living adjustments for the employee groups. I've impressed upon them and impressed upon POA, the Police Officers Association, that our funding is limited, that we just don't have, we can't maybe meet their wants or their expectations, but this is what we can do. It's a function of them realizing that that's where the city is, as well as the other bargaining units. But again, if we don't, I think, treat our employees with some cost of living adjustments, eventually they're gonna make the decision to leave the organization, and you do lose skill sets when you've got personnel that have a lot of years with the city, and they're ready now to just move on to something else.
And I couldn't agree with you more, but we need to do it within our means.
Yeah, I understand.
And I've always said that we have the best, good, hardworking, and I've always supported our employees. And excuse me, I can clear the room if that's what you guys want me to do. One more outburst and I will.
Dave, that's actually very disrespectful. Please refrain from your profanity.
Anyways, and I would love to give them a contract like they want. I would love to give them everything that they want. But let's be real. And I just, we've got a grand jury finding that says we're under the unfunded pension liability is a significant concern. Mm-hmm. And we're just blowing that off.
Well, we didn't blow it off because I went back to the non-safety unions and requested that they make a concession in terms of the new classic employees to this organization paying part of the city's employment obligations to PERS. And that's a big give. While it doesn't affect the employees, I honestly believe, the existing employees, I honestly believe that will help the city in its future financial obligations. And it requires, it's a meet and confer, it requires bargaining amongst the units to get that ask. And we have it on the table if you want it. It's up to the council to decide what they want to do. You gave me my charge. I went out, I did it. I've conferred with you along the way, and this is what we have today. So you can decide.
And I understand all of that. I understand all of that, but the other thing is where's this revenue going to come from? I mean, you guys are going to do a sales tax increase pitch. That can't pay for employee salaries. That is never going to go off and pass and be feasible for us. Mm-hmm. We're good maybe this year, but what about next year? What about the third year? What about the fourth year? And what about the fourth and the fifth year? Those are items that, what about our streets, our trees, our sidewalks? You guys are not looking all the way down the line on what this needs to, and it's not financially responsible to our residents to do a contract like this.
But hiring an attorney for $360,000 to fail, hiring Marty Thuvenel for $100,000 for being another city manager, that is not fiscally responsible either. The thing that we are spending money.
Okay, Ricky, you can keep bringing up the past all you want.
That's the problem that we're having right now, Debbie, is that the prior council's actions is putting us in hot water right now.
I understand that.
So
I don't agree with
this council needs to fix the prior council's issues.
So giving away all this money is going to fix the issues.
I wouldn't say giving away. I would say investing. Money. We are investing in our staff. The staff know that if all of a sudden we have to do budget cuts, they know budget cuts are going to. They know that they might be on their jobs might be on the line.
Mayor,
but they're willing to take that risk.
Mayor, may I comment?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Even in your own household, you're going to look at where you don't know if you're going to be employed a year from now, 2 years from now. Anyway, what I am concerned about from this seat only is that I know what it costs to hire and train people. My company was known as a training company, and people would, as soon as we trained them, they would leave and go down the street for a higher pay. It would cost me more money to replace those people. I know for a fact there are police officers in this city that are looking to go elsewhere if they are not compensated reasonably. And that's what we have to do as a city, is have to make sure that the level of service doesn't drop. Now, yes, there's budgets, and that's when we've got to work together as a council and find places that we have to be careful what services we do reduce. That's where that fiscal prudence becomes important. And to bring up the fact that there's a potential for a sales tax it was improper at this time, because that's not what's being discussed right now as a sales tax.
It's revenue for the future.
Well, that's not even discussed.
It needs to be, though, Bill.
Sales
That's the
tax.
thing.
Well, sales tax is potential revenue for the future, but that has to be decided on, and how we're going to do it as a community, so that the residents are willing to support it. It's all in the delivery. Everything that was done is going to be done moving forward, has to be done transparently with the community's support. And we know right now that the residents in this community want the city staff, the majority, want the city staff, number one, to be compensated, and they want the level of services either to maintain or exceed their expectations. And the only way we're going to do that is to make sure we have quality people working for our community.
And I don't disagree with you at all on that. Excuse me, please. We're trying to have a conversation.
So Mayor, I have one more thing that I'd like to say, and then I'll be quiet. The fact finder came out with their determination, and the fact finder's determination or recommendation to council at that time was to give the 1% lump sum for the 2 years.
Right.
That's in the proposal that you have here, and the 4% COLA that you have within this proposal. That just starts this negotiation process right now again with the union groups. These proposals that are before you now are 5-year term, so that's 2% already agreed to by the unions for the following 2 years. I mean, I think, that's getting a 5-year agreement for a little bit more money here. So, and then you don't have to do labor negotiations till 2022.
And I get that, Rosemary, and I understand that, and I respect that. But the thing is we're not, and it's just my opinion. That's all it is. I'm one of 5 up here making this decision. In the perfect world, I said it. We've got the best employees, and I'd like to give them the world, but we can't. And I just think that we're sticking our neck out on the line for a pretty hefty amount when we don't even know what UPOA is going to be. I mean, it's still, those numbers still have to come back. But if you use the 60
when I originally presented information to the council in closed session, UPA was considered, or POA, POA, too many acronyms. POA was considered in the calculations. It's not considered for items that are above and beyond what we discussed.
Right, but was much higher than the 874 that's being presented tonight, right?
Well, of course, it's incrementally higher because there's 54 employees that are not accounted for in what's being presented to you tonight. But it was presented to you in closed session.
You did present those numbers to us, Rosemary, and we were able to accommodate those numbers, correct? The city's able to fund that? So it's not like for the entirety of the contract.
But that's assuming that,
if they went in on that, we can't. I'm not going to discuss that, but in the entirety of the contract, we were covered at that rate where we're at with everybody else.
Right. That's assuming there's no downfall or downturn or anything else.
Another comment is the revenue we get from property taxes, setting aside the fire department loss, the property taxes are going up. That's a fact. We have a lot more homes going to be sold in this city. There's going to be a lot more property tax revenue coming in over the next few years. And to speculate the economy having a downturn, it's not like the stock market where it drops overnight. Real estate values take a period of time, and you can see it coming. And those property taxes maintain that. They don't drop. The state does not come in and say, we're going to lower your property taxes without a homeowner going in front of the county and asking for the reassessment. And on the last go-around, very few people did a reassessment on their properties. So I find it highly unlikely that the economy or the money that we generate through sales tax, existing sales tax, and potential new sales tax without even talking about a sales tax increase or property taxes is going to increase next year. Absolutely going to increase next year. And
Well,
it's going
that'd
to
be
increase here.
something great that HDL, if Rosemary could get that for us, because HDL's saying that we're heading into a slower economy.
HDL is.
Where we got a
Sales
business
tax
license.
increase.
Well, I'm only talking about property tax right now.
But it's property tax and sales
It's not
tax.
going to drop.
Revenue, everything is revenue
Property
right now.
tax is not going to drop.
We're also correcting some things that were done in the past. Like, I believe staff's going to start taking over the HDL duties, correct, next year?
We're going to look at that. Yeah.
It's not good.
Well, they're going to take over it, and we're going to start collecting more fees and such. And I think things are going to swing better for Upland. This is a new Upland, a new council. We're doing things totally different. We're trying not to make the mistakes that were made in the past. It's the company that we use for
business
the business
licensing.
licensing. If we have an in-house person doing that, it gives them the opportunity to be able to go around and check business license and collect fees from businesses that are not licensed. But when you're up north, it's a little bit harder, or Central California.
Yeah, we have a budgeted position that's going to help with that.
But it isn't filled yet.
I don't think it's filled yet. I'd have to ask.
So guys, there's a job opening. Let you guys know. Just let you guys know there's an opening for a position here.
Before you know the board, I just want to say I appreciate the mayor's concern. I appreciate your comments, Mayor. I do. I think, though, that I've thought deeply about this, and I respect my colleagues with their thought process. And I think we've all really put a lot of thought into this, and I respect each one of their opinions. And however it comes out and however the vote comes, we've got to come together and work together to make sure that we can make this city move forward and increase revenues in this city to offset. I want to make sure that when I'm done my term up here, that I can look back and say, you know what, we accomplished some things, and guess what? The next few years, I think, and I believe, are going to do better. I'm not that doomsday guy. I believe the economy is going to do better for the next few years.
So do you need action like basically let's approve it or like motion?
Yeah, all of the groups have signed the documents before you, so it just takes your action to approve.
All right, I motion
Wait a
to.
second.
And just to be clear, that's through the draft resolutions that are in your packet. There's a separate resolution for each MOU.
Okay, so I can say I motion to approve all four. Basically, let me see what
The
business items A, B, C, and D
as recommended.
as recommended.
I'll second.
Well, the only thing I'm going to say is this is really not financially responsible on our part, but I guess we'll see how it plays out. Carrie?
It didn't take.
Mine didn't? All right, there we go. Thank you very much. So at this time, we'll go to oral